Welcome, Magnus here. Today, I'm doing a special video that was suggested by a lot of people who watched my R5 review. If you haven't checked it out, check it out on my channel and let me know what you guys think of the R5 Mark II so far. But this special request video has entirely to do with the fact that a lot of people have been saying that when you record 4K RAW, whether it's 4K RAW 24, 30, and even 60 frames per second, in the R5 Mark II, it's actually sharper than recording, say, 4K 60 in a compressed format on the R5 Mark II, which is interesting to me. And it's supposed to be sharper than the standard 4K in the R5 Mark II, which I always thought that it would be similar because I thought it would be a line-skipped sort of format to record the 4K RAW. But SRAW seems to be doing a little bit something extra. Now, is it as sharp as oversampling? That's what I came here to find out. Is it better than 4K standard and 4K 60? Let's find out in this video. And if you're new to my channel, I like to talk about mirrorless cameras specifically for videos. So if you like that kind of stuff, consider subscribing. And without further ado, let's get started with this test. Now, I've got pretty much a video that I'm going to show you right here of where I recorded myself in different formats, as you can see right here, in different formats, and we're going to jump over to this video and then see what is actually sharper in the different modes and come to a conclusion. Should we record 4K RAW when we want sharper video when compared to like something like 4K 60? Let's find out. Okay, so this first video is, and I did 6 tests, so we're gonna run through all 6 tests that I see. I outputted the footage in 100 megabits per second 4K. I know that YouTube might compress it a little bit further, but I did it in a high quality 4K so that we can actually see the details. But there's not much I can do about the compression, even with the compression software of my editing right now. But what I'll do is at the end of this video, after I tell you what I can see with my own eyes of the pure footage, I will just play the video outright, just like I have the file, so you guys can make your own determination on what you think is sharper. So let's start off with the first comparison. R5 Mark II in 4K fine, which is their oversampled from 8K, versus the R5 Mark I and its oversampling of the footage. Now, what I can see from here in this first shot, I was a tad closer to the R5 Mark I than I was to the R5 Mark II, but they look pretty similar, and there really is no conspicuous difference. Now, when you zoom in 300%, looking at the footage, the R5 Mark I looks a bit sharper when it comes to the details in my eyes and the details in all of that, but that's specifically because, again, I stood a tad closer. I used the same lens on both cameras, and I had it set up on the same tripod, and I filmed in different instances, of course. So same field of view, same position, same zoom level, 70 millimeters. I recorded at f8 to get more of a deeper depth of field, and also the best sharpness, or the closest to best sharpness on the lens, so we can really see the details here. So in this high quality downsampled from 8K from the R5 Mark I and the R5 Mark II, I can tell you there's almost no discernible difference between the two. So from that standpoint, you're going to get, of course, really high quality footage when you downsample from the 8K. Now this next test is the R5 Mark II versus the R5 Mark I in 8K, which we have the compression of HEVC on the R5 Mark II and H.265 on the R5 Mark I, which is basically the same thing. I wanted to see if, okay, comparing it, the 8K footage, is there a sharper looking 8K? Which I didn't think there would be any. I didn't see much of a difference besides the fact that I'm slightly closer on the R5 Mark I, and then when you zoom it in here, we're getting very high quality details in my skin. You can see details, you can see different colorations on both of the camera angles and perspectives. So from that standpoint, you're not really getting much of a difference. Both are excellent. Now this particular test, I wanted to test the 4K 60 frames per second on the R5 Mark I and the R5 Mark II to see if there was a tangible difference in how it basically line skips on the R5 Mark II versus the R5 Mark I. Now looking at it at a full view, they both look great. Like, I would say this footage is totally usable because not everybody zooms in 300% to footage. So no complaints. Both of them are using similar compression methods. When you zoom in 300%, you can see that the footage is a bit soft, but this is 300%. Do I notice a difference in both of them? I'll stop it right here. I really don't. Again, I'm a little bit closer on the R5 Mark 1 when I recorded this, but there's not a tangible difference in the old camera versus the new camera. So really, you could pick up the old R5 Mark 1 or use the R5 Mark 2, and you would have similar looking footage, apart from the fact that one has C-Log 2, one has C-Log 3, but you can work with them and be just fine. So no worries there on that. Let's move on. So in this angle, we're seeing the R5 Mark II in 4K RAW compared to the R5 Mark II in high quality, downsampled from 8K, 24 frames per second. And we've got the R5 Mark II in standard mode. Now this is where you're going to start to see the quality differences. And we're just using the one camera in this mode, the R5 Mark II. Now, from this normal looking footage that I'm playing right now, you can see that, all right, they don't look too different. Actually, I could see a tangible difference, actually, to the naked eye in the R5 Mark II 4K HQ. It does look a tad bit sharper when compared to the other two camera angles. But then let's close it up and pause it right here. If you notice, the R5 Mark II in high quality, you can really see the details, like in my facial structure. There's almost like nothing that's fuzzy or out of focus. The R5 Mark II in standard mode, it almost looks like it's blurry, even though it's focused on my face. But the 4K RAW in the R5 Mark II at 24 frames per second, 300% zoomed in. The R5 Mark II in 4K RAW is not as sharp as the R5 Mark II in 4K HQ, which is downsampled from 8K, but it comes pretty darn close. There's some discoloration because it's raw footage, and you would, of course, have to tweak it a little bit. But the detail on it is pretty incredible. Is it as high as oversampled? No, that's not what we're seeing here. Oversampled is definitely sharper. But the good news is that it is somewhat sharper than the 4K standard mode, which I particularly was worried about. I thought it would be the same type of clarity, but you're getting an improved clarity on the 4K RAW. Let's move on to the next shot in comparison. Here we go. Now, here we've got 4K RAW at 60 frames per second on the R5 Mark II compared to the 4K RAW 60 frames per second on the R5 Mark II compressed with HEVC versus the R5 Mark I 60 frames per second compressed. Now, off of this shot, this standard shot of all three of me, it does look like they're pretty similar, pretty close. But I notice, even from this view, there's a slight sharpness edge to the 4K RAW. Now, we're going to zoom in on this footage and see if there's more of a tangible difference when you zoom in. And off of this shot right now, I can tell you that the HEVC 4K 60 frames per second Mark II and Mark I are a lot fuzzier. Not a lot, maybe just a tad fuzzier than the 4K RAW footage. And this tells me they're doing some type of oversampling or downsampling, but I don't know how they're pulling that off. Next test, we've got 4K RAW at 60 frames per second, comparing it to the same camera, R5 Mark II, but 8K RAW downsampled to 4K. So I downsampled on my computer, and then I compared both of them. So both of them are 4K, 60 frames per second, but I'm doing a true downsampling. And when you zoom in on them to see the difference, there is a sharpness difference, very slight, to the 8K downsampled to 4K from the R5 Mark II, but it is very slight. I'm very impressed by the 4K RAW footage and how that actually turned out. So this goes to show you that although it isn't perfect 8K footage downsampled completely, it is something to pay attention to. It is sharper than line skipped. So everyone had questions about the comparisons. There it is. The 4K RAW, the SRAW to be specific, is sharper in a lot of these modes. Now, you're still getting better looking or sharper footage when you get the 8K downsampled to 4K, or you do it yourself and get that 8K 60 frames per second downsample to 4K. But if you need and want to use 4K SRAW and you worry about it being line skipped, worry no longer. It's going to be somewhat sharper than the standard 4K 30, 4K 60. So that's what you get. If you like this information, this was helpful to you, please let me know in the comments down below. I also want to tell you that once I reach 100,000 subscribers, I mentioned this in a previous video, if you leave a comment and you subscribed, I'm going to look at my videos and pick one person after I reach 100,000 to get my Panasonic GH5. So, and you got to be in the 48 states of the US. That's the one caveat. But I'll ship it to you. I'll put it in its original box. It's the one that I have personally. It's actually back there. But no worries, it is yours. So thank you, and I appreciate it. And as always, you can make my day if you subscribe today. This is Magnus, and I'm out. And now stick around. I'm going to play the video footage for you so that you can make your own determination on what's sharper and what looks better. Take care, guys.
Magnus Video Productions, the place to